5 investigating proteins and traits. And so by the end of today, you guys are going to be able to support a claim with evidence on how specific proteins affect running ability. So we're going to kind of look at this new protein molecule for running ability and connect that with the spiders and how we've been learning about spiders and their protein molecules. All right, so for our first activity, we are going to go into our warm-up. And so you're going to observe and explain some new data on the bark spider's silk flexibility trait. Katie, we're not done with spiders. I'm sorry. All right, so if you are in Amplify, great. If you're not, go ahead and press on this screen. And so Dr. Satari and the genetic researchers at Bay Medical Company have determined the proteins for each spider offspring. And so you're going to review those results and then answer the question below. And so you guys are going to, when you open this and you look at this picture, you're going to be given those protein molecules under the offspring. And I think it wants you to look at the one that has that medium silk flexibility. And it's going to ask you a question about that. All right, so go ahead, go into Amplify, and you're going to have about 3 minutes. Okay, I'm going to put a timer up here for 3 minutes for you to finish that warm-up and hand it in. All right, so if you haven't pressed on this screen, if you haven't gone into Amplify, make sure you do, and I'm going to start that timer. All right, so once this timer goes up, make sure you have handed that in. Once you guys do get done with that warm-up, if you want to go to that second tab and be there already, that's going to be our next activity. If you want to look at it, you can. Don't start on it just yet. You got about 1 minute and 40 seconds. All right, about 1 minute left. Thirty seconds. 30 seconds. Make sure you get that handed in. We're going to move on to our next activity. All right, I'm going to pause that because I hate that sound of that alarm. All right, so we are actually going to be looking at that spider family tree a little bit more today. So we're going to kind of come back around to it, I think, in this next activity. So we'll look a little more in depth at that. So for activity 2, we're going to just discuss a little bit. And so we're going to review some new evidence on the bark spider family and then compare it to our 3 possible claims. And so at the very beginning of this unit, we looked at this question, we looked at these claims. We weren't really able to pick one just yet. I kind of just introduced it to you. All right, so our question is, why do traits for silk flexibility vary within this family of Darwin's bark spiders? And so claim 1 says the offspring have mutations that affect their traits. Claim 2 says the offspring's traits depend on which parent the offspring received more traits from. And then claim 3 says the offspring received different combinations of traits from their parents. All right. So let's look at this next question. What do we know so far about why the spider family's offspring have different traits for silk flexibility? So what do we know so far? If you are a little confused with this question, think about your own family. Maybe you have a big family. Why do you have different hair colors? If you do, maybe why do you have different eye color? Okay, so what do we know so far about why the spider family's offspring have different traits for silk flexibility? All right, go ahead and answer in Pear Deck if you are not just yet.
The claims confuse me.
What about them?
I thought that it was
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none of them really say something about protein molecules, so I know how that can get confusing. But it does kind of, I don't want to say insinuate, but their protein molecules do play a role in one of these claims. Okay, we'll look a little bit more at that in the next few weeks because I don't think we're going to be able to pick a claim today just because we haven't even learned about claim 1, right? We haven't even learned about mutations just yet. All right, so what do you guys know so far about why the spider family's offspring have different traits for silk flexibility? And you don't even have to say anything about the claims either. Just what do we know so far? All right, if you haven't responded in Pear Deck, I'm going to give you another about 10, 15 seconds. Make sure you are. All right, so we know that they have different traits for silk flexibility because one offspring may have more proteins that are from one parent. They could also be different because of the number of connections the proteins make. Okay. We know the offspring's traits vary due to how much each parent's trait they inherit. Right? So we know something about we get our traits or we get our genes from our parents, right? That's one thing that we know. They have different traits for silk flexibility because one offspring have more protein from one parent, or they have different combinations of protein combined. So you're kind of bringing in those last 2 claims that we just talked about. They receive different combinations of traits. You know that each one has different traits, and offspring get their traits and molecules from their parents. The way the proteins are built. Different protein molecules in the spiders. So we know, actually from one of our key concepts from the previous classes, we know that protein molecules do affect our traits, right? Perfect, because of different protein molecules. Awesome, this one hit the head on the nail. We get, you get different protein molecules and traits from your parents, right? So those are the 2 things that we know. We know it has to deal with something with protein molecules, and we know that it has to deal with something with traits from our parents, right? We don't just get these traits out of the blue, right? So do we have enough evidence yet to support or eliminate any of these claims? You guys can just put yes or no. You can explain. But do we have enough evidence yet to support or eliminate any of these claims? You think we can pick one right now? All right. Katie thinks no. I'm going to see what you guys are saying. Okay, why do you think we can get rid of claim 1? Okay. Okay. So you are right on we need to get some more details on like what they're getting from their parents, how these proteins are kind of lining up and how they're getting those proteins. But that mutations word is bolded. We actually haven't talked about mutations just yet, but we are going to talk about them next week in chapter 2. So I wouldn't say get rid of it, but I would kind of say be on the fence about it. All right, so we'll look a little bit more at mutations. So we are not going to get rid of any of these claims just yet. We can focus on claim 2 and 3 just because that's what we're looking at because we haven't talked about mutations for claim 1. All right, so we're not getting rid of them yet. All right, so here was that Darwin's bark spider family tree that we were looking at. And you guys were seeing this offspring bee, this female that had medium silk flexibility, right? And so why? Why do you think she has this trait for medium silk flexibility? What about her protein molecules tell you that she has that medium silk flexibility? All right, so Katie is looking at offspring A and C who have low, and then she's also looking at offspring D. All right, so if you don't see that, make sure you take a look at that picture. So you're looking at that protein molecule for offspring A and C. They're the exact same, right? They have low silk flexibility. And then look at offspring D and see what's different about those 3 silk flexibilities. So go ahead, respond to that in Pear Deck. I want to see what you guys have put. All right, so offspring B has the trait for medium silk flexibility because of what? Protein molecules have more connectors. If you guys think back, if you're having a hard time, think back to Mr. Livingood's Ed puzzle that we did. I think it was lesson 1.3. Yes, 1.3 is when we did that Ed puzzle, and we did the modeling tool. Okay. I'll try to give it a second. I'm going to go through some of these and see what people are saying. All right, so there's a mixture, those 4 connectors. So the low silk flexibility and the 2 connectors, which indicate the high silk flexibility. All right, maybe she did get more of mom's traits because if you look at the family tree, you can see that the mom has medium silk flexibility. Good. All right, so we're saying a lot about how these protein molecules look and how they connect to each other. Right? Katie, if it's not loading, just leave it. Okay, okay. All right, so we see that offspring B, that female, has medium silk flexibility because of her protein molecules, right? So I kind of went over how this one has low silk flexibility because of these protein molecules. So does this one. And then you've got your high silk flexibility and your medium silk flexibility. All right, so for our key concept, this is our first key concept that's going to go in your digital notebook. It should be under Chapter 1, Lesson 5 in your digital notebook. So find that page, and this is going to go under Important Ideas. So this key concept tells us organisms can have different proteins in their cells for a particular feature. All right, so if you look back at the picture of the family tree, each of those organisms, each of those spiders, had different proteins in their cells that made up this silk flexibility trait. All right, so make sure you get that key concept down. I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds. Hopefully you have your notebook open and you are able to write this down. All right, about 10 more seconds. All right, we are going to move on to activity 3, which is the sim. So we're going to open up the sim and test some predictions on how changes in proteins are going to affect an organism's trait. All right, so we have previously looked at this sim to compare spiders with different traits for the same feature. And so we observed that spiders with different traits had different proteins in their cells. So today you guys are going to use the sim to add different proteins. So if one spider has a protein molecule for high silk flexibility, you're going to be adding a protein molecule that maybe has it for low silk flexibility or medium silk flexibility. And we'll look at it. We'll do a few examples together first before you guys do 2 more examples. Okay, so we're going to be adding different proteins to these spider cells and observe how it affects the spider's trait. All right, so if you're in Amplify, you can go ahead and go to tab 3, activity 3, which is the sim. If you're not, you can click on this screen. All right, so we should be in tab 3. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to Amplify on my screen. So if you want to look at my shared screen instead of this Pear Deck, that's what I'm going to be on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, go into Amplify on tab 3. All right, so you should see these 4 different tables here. So go ahead and launch that traits and reproduction sim. I'll give you guys a few seconds to make sure you get this all opened up. And so we're going to use the sim to investigate how adding proteins affects spiders' traits. And then we're going to record the results in the data table below. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So the first spider, when you open that sim, you should see a page that looks like this. Okay, you've got 6 different spiders. And the spider that we're going to be looking at for this first example is Greg. All right, so Greg is the first top left spider. So I'm going to go ahead and click on him since we're going to be using him for our first example. All right, so what I'm going to be doing and what I want you guys to be doing is to be going back and forth between Amplify at this table and with this simulation. So you should be going back and forth between the sim and the table. Katie doesn't like Greg and his friends because Katie hates spiders. All right, so the first spider we're looking at is Greg. We're going to be looking at his silk flexibility. All right, that's the feature that we're going to be looking at, silk flexibility. And so the first thing that this wants us to do is to record our observations. So the question it's asking us is, what traits and protein does Greg have for the silk flexibility feature? All right, Monte's saying low silk flexibility. All right, do we all agree with Monte that it is low silk flexibility? If you look at his trait. Brandon, yes? Okay. All right, so we're going to go with Greg has low silk flexibility. All right, now it's not just asking what trait he has, it's asking what protein molecule he has. So it says, what traits and proteins does Greg have for the silk flexibility? So Katie's saying 1, and the reason that Katie is saying 1 is because she's looking down here at this little white box by the cell. And so protein 1 has those 4 connectors, like Monte is saying. Protein 2 has the 2 connectors, and protein 3 doesn't have any connectors. All right, so we're going to go with Katie on this one, and we're going to say that Greg has protein 1. So this is all you need to write in that box. So he has low cell flexibility, protein 1. Now, before we go into test anything, before we add anything, we're going to make a prediction. So do you think that adding protein 1 is going to change Greg's trait? And why or why not? But he has protein 1. But we're giving him protein 1, Katie. I think you might be looking at the second one.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's not gonna change. He's gonna stay like low.
Okay. So in our prediction, we're just gonna say no. And why? Why do we think? Monte says it's gonna stay low for what reason?
Because it's adding the same protein molecules that he already has.
Perfect. All right, so that's what Brandon said. That's what Emerson said. So we're gonna go with that. So we can say no. He already has protein 1. Right. You guys don't have to write a paragraph in here. Just put one short little sentence as to why or why not it will change. All right, so let's go and.
Your mic is really bad. Like, we can't hear you.
My mic is.
I can hear you, but like it's weird. It's like
Yeah, it got really bad. I don't know why.
Alexa off. Can y'all hear me okay?
No, that's worse.
It's worse?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you hear me closer? Yeah, I'll see my face a little bit closer. Sorry. Can you hear me better?
No.
Oh no. What is happening?
It's like echoing.
It's echoing?
It's like, it's weird.
This is not good, guys. I'll tell you why are you lost. Can y'all hear me?
we can hear you, but like it sounds like you're far from your computer.
It sounds like you're speaking from like, I don't know, like 10 feet away or something. I don't know how to measure things.
I'm sorry, guys. I'll try to speak up as loud as possible. And try to do this. I don't know, something's wrong with my computer, but I haven't done anything different. Sorry. Okay, it's a little bit better, I hope. I'm trying to get as close to my computer as possible. So we're going to try and put protein 1 into our cell. Okay, So let's go ahead. We're going to drag protein 1 into here. And then I want you to look at what's happening up here and what's happening in the cell to see if this trait changes at all. Give it another 5-10 seconds. See if anything happens. All right. Now, did anything happen? Were we correct?
Nothing happened.
Good. Okay, so when we go in and say test your prediction, we're going to say that there was no change. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next table, and then we're gonna do this table together, and then I'm gonna let you go and do the last 2 tables on your own. Okay, so we are going to look at Greg again and test something with his silk flexibility. So it's asking to record our observations, and so our observations about Greg are going to be the same. So last time Monte told us that he has low silk flexibility, and then Katie told us that he has protein 1. Okay, so we're going to stick with that. Now we're going to test something a little bit different. It's asking us, do you think that adding protein 2 is going to change Greg's traits? And then why or why not? So that's what Katie, I think, was looking at earlier, where she said she does think it's going to change. So what do you guys think? If we add protein 2 and he has protein 1, what do you think might happen? Is it going to change? Is it going to stay there the whole time? What do you think might happen? Katie thinks he might get medium silk flexibility. So does Emerson. What does everybody else think? Brandon also thinks that. Monte thinks that as well. Jad, what do you think? Lexi, what do you think? That it will. Okay. All right. So we are going to say that there's going to be a change, and that it will change to medium silk flexibility. Monte's already on top of it. He already tested it. All right. So I'm going to go to
Ruby. She's the gross one. Besides the white one. I hate the white one more. Rudy's the second one. Wait, that was really weird. Like I couldn't hear you like at all. It sounded like it was like really, really muffled. I'm pretty sure it was just me and my computer lagging, but that was weird.
Now I can't. I don't know if anybody else can, but I can't hear you. But I see that your mic's unmuted though. So weird. All of this happened in the course of 5 minutes. Like I'm so confused.
I know, it's just like so weird. This is what happened.
Wait, I can. It's like okay, so I heard you talk. Okay, all right.
We
So I
can't hear you at all.
just like very, very slightly now. Like it's just getting worse and worse. Like just like it's like a voice in my head. Like and it's whispering. I can barely hear.
I can't hear you at all. Did you spill something on your computer?
But I do hear that baby crying in the background. If there was.
Can you guys hear me enough to do the next 2 tables in your own?
Okay, it's getting better.
Do the next 2 tables on your own. All right, this requires me to not talk. So I'm hoping that you do. I'm going to type it in the chat.
Okay. Well, you can. I can hear you kind of. I can hear you better just now.
It's really hard to understand. Like we can hear you now. It's just really hard to understand.
She said she's just gonna type in the chat.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I called in on my phone, so I'm hoping that this works. So we can still do this on the computer, but I'm talking on my phone. It's kind of weird.
I was wondering what that little that phone sign was in the bottom left.
All right, we got it figured out. So you guys got about a minute and a half. Make sure you guys finish that table, those two tables.
we need the electricity.
The what?
The column. The tool. Oh my gosh. Do we need the modeling tool anymore? I just completely blew.
We're not using modeling tool today. Just the
Like
sim.
the spider thing.
Oh no, we're not going to use the sim anymore. We're done after that. So you don't have to keep looking at spiders.
I completely blanked on the game.
All right, one more minute, guys. One more minute. Actually, about 45 seconds. So wrap it up, hand it in. If you did not get through with it, that is okay. I really want to get on to this next activity. And we're going to read just a little bit, and we're actually going to use a Jamboard. Last class went pretty well with the Jamboard, so I'm hoping we can look at it a little bit more depending on how much time we have. All right, so it is 11:52. We are going to look at activity 4. So this will be the last activity before we get to our homework. And so you guys are going to be assigned one of the 3 experiments on the ACTN3 protein to review and explain. So I told you guys at the beginning of class that we were going to look at this new protein that had to do with running in humans. So a protein that involves running. All right, so we are going to use a Jamboard to share some of our ideas. All right, so remember, you guys are playing a role of a student genetic researcher assisting Bay Medical Company in learning more about the Darwin's bark spider's trait for silk flexibility. And so we're kind of going to skew off the Darwin's bark spiders, but we need to keep it in the back of our mind to kind of relate what we've been learning about Darwin's bark spiders to this protein molecule, to this ACTN3 protein molecule. So I'm going to read what Dr. Satari has sent us. So it says at Bay Medical Company, we're working on several projects. So far, you've been helping us with our spider silk research. However, we now want to introduce you to another project. One of the teams is conducting research on human muscle proteins. I want your team to take a look at the initial findings from their work for a protein called ACTN3. ACTN3 protein molecules connect muscle fibers, helping them contract more rapidly. As a result, the researchers think this protein might help the people run faster. The researchers want to know what you think about the results of the test they just completed. They wonder if they should continue to investigate this protein. All right, so we are looking at ACTN3. It is an area of current research, but it's not yet well understood by scientists. And so they're researching how this protein affects traits for running ability. All right, so that's write and share kind of routine. If you want to go ahead and click on the Jamboard, you can. It's going to take you to where we're going to be. And so it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. Make sure you are not on the page that already has post-it notes on it because that is for 5th hour. So you should be on that second page. All right, it says 6th hour in the bottom left corner. Right, make sure you're right there. And I'm going to go over the instructions on how we're going to do this. So there is information in Amplify. We're going to go over that here in a second. Right, that is where we're going to get our instructions from. You're going to answer the prompt on Amplify using the vocabulary words. So we have already written these vocab words down in our notebook. If you need to go back to them, then you can go back to them. If you don't, that's perfect. But you're going to be using protein, feature, and trait. All right, after you've had a chance to write, you're going to copy and paste your response on the Jamboard. So we're going to write in Amplify, and then you're not going to write anything new into the Jamboard. You're just going to copy and paste what you've written in Amplify so that other people can see it. So while other students write their responses on the Jamboard, you're going to read their responses after you've written yours. And so after, hopefully we have some time, we've got about 15 more minutes, we are going to discuss as a class. All right, so I'm going to go into Amplify. If you're looking at my screen, not on the Pear Deck, I'm going to go over the instructions. And so there are student 1, 2, and 3. If you look on our Jamboard, there are 3 columns. Okay, there's going to be 3 columns for student 1, 2, and 3. All right, there's something just a tad bit different about each student. So you're going to read the information about the test conducted by Bay Medical Company and answer the question below. That's not good, Katie. Okay, that's okay, Katie. And so if you look on our Jamboard real quick, make sure that you are doing the correct student. You're not going to do all 3 students. Like I said at the beginning of this activity, you are only doing one of the students. So if your last name is A through I, you're going to be on student 1. J through R, student 2. S through Z is student 3. Okay? So make sure you are adding after you read about your student that you're assigned. Okay, so student 1, make sure your last name is A through I, student 2 is J through R, student 3 is S through Z. You're not doing all 3 students. Right? So student 1 is on the second circle in Amplify. Student 2 is on the third, and of course student 3 is on the fourth circle. Okay, so go ahead and make sure you're in Amplify on tab 4. You're going to read that little piece right here on the test. You're going to read the evidence, and you're going to answer the question on, do you think this evidence shows something about this ACTN3 protein? Okay, so I'm going to give us till about 5 minutes left of class. So whenever our clock hits 12:05, we're going to make sure that we're kind of wrapping up and that we're moving on to the homework. And I'm explaining the homework and our weekly check-in. So technically you guys got a little less than 7 minutes right now to work on this write and share. And then post it, copy and paste it on our Jamboard. So just make sure you guys are on the correct student. You do not have to do all 3. All right, somebody had a good question in the chat, and she asked what it means by running ability, and does it mean speed? You can take into account speed. Yes, that's what I would get from that, is running ability means speed. So the better your running ability, the faster you are. Yes, Brandon, hand it in on Amplify. you might as well, and then copy and paste whatever you wrote in Amplify. So whatever you wrote in the text box down here, just copy and paste that in Jamboard.
I'm so confused.
Katie, what are you confused on? Okay, you should be on this student 1 right here. So on Amplify, on tab 4, you should be on the student 1, so the second circle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to read this information below here. And so it talks about the test. It talks about how they recruited a group of competitive runners and they measured their level of this certain protein, the ACTN3 protein in each runner. And then they had the runners participate in a sprint. During the test, the runners sprinted as fast as they could for 100 meters. And so you're given some evidence. So your evidence as student 1 is that scientists found that the runners who sprinted the fastest had the highest amount of ACTN3 protein molecules in their body. Okay, they had the highest amount of ACTN3 protein molecules in their body. And so do you think that that evidence that you just got determines this running ability or determines how fast they go? And you're going to explain using those 3 words.
Thank you.
Lexi, yes, you're just doing that one student. And so the reason that I have the Jamboard is so that you guys can see what other people are writing for each student. So each student just a little bit different, not very much. So student 1 talks about sprinters being really fast. Student 2 talks about sprinting at an average pace, and student 3 talks about sprinting at a slower pace. Okay, so just do that one student. All right, hopefully our last names are kind of spread out, and hopefully you're not doing the wrong student. I guess more of our last names are between A and I.
Can you send the link to the fair deck again?
Yeah, sorry. I know your computer crashed and can't get on it. Let me pull up the chat. There you go. All right, you just got a couple minutes. Make sure that you're responding in Amplify and then just kind of copying what is happening or what you put in Amplify into our Jamboard.
Well, my computer crashed again.
I'm sorry, Monte. I just noticed that. All right, so if you're having a tough time kind of thinking about what does it mean by running ability, somebody had asked a question about that. And when I talk about running ability, it's going to mean something about how quick you are, how fast you sprint. Okay, so don't think too hard about running ability because it could mean a few things if you're really looking that into it. But what it's talking about here is how fast you're sprinting. All right, so try to wrap that up. I know we're running a little bit low on time. I'll give you guys a couple more minutes. Yes, Brandon. That's what I was going to talk about next. So if you're still working on this, please keep working on this. I'm more worried about this than the homework because I really want you guys to kind of make those connections between what's happening with the running, the ACT3N protein molecule and running ability and kind of connecting that back to what's happening in spiders and their protein molecules for the silk flexibility trait. So make sure if you have not, that you're responding to the activity in Amplify, you're doing the correct student, and then putting it here on our Jamboard. I will send out, let me go copy and paste the Jamboard into the chat so that you guys can have that. Or if you're on it, you should be able to still open it after we get done with class. So if you're on it, make sure that you're responding in that Jamboard. All right, so I'm going to give you guys till the end of class to finish up that Jamboard. These two things that I wanted to tell you about were the homework and the weekly check-in. So Brandon was asking about that. If you finish the homework, can you move on to the weekly check-in? And yes, you can. If you are done with this Jamboard and activity 4, you can move on to the homework and then the weekly check-in. But those are the last two things that you need to do. The homework in Amplify is just going over a question that you have seen before. So remember, for lesson 1.2, we looked at a few statements, whether we agree or we disagree with them. And so it's going to come back around to one of those statements, and it wants you to either change or keep your answer, but add some evidence to it. So it's going to ask you to agree or disagree, and then put some evidence in there as to why you think that way. All right. The only other thing after that is the weekly check-in. Okay, you guys know that you always have that weekly check-in on Canvas. All right. Are there any questions? Are we still having a little bit of trouble with this Jamboard?
On Amplify, I didn't have an answer in the text box. Like there's something right there, just blank.
You don't have an answer in the text box. What do you mean? Like here?
Like for the homework, it just like I never answered it.
Oh, you never answered it?
Well, I know that I did, but it doesn't show an answer.
Okay.
It's just blank.
Yeah, because it does say that your original response is there, but just answer it how you would now. Don't worry about how you answered it back then. If it's not there, I thought it would be there because it does say review your original response to this statement. So just put agree or disagree, and then what evidence supports your ideas now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like we're getting a few more responses. You guys are writing a lot for this. That's good. My other classes weren't writing this much, so I'm glad you guys are really getting in depth about it. I mean, let's receive more traits. All right, so we've got about 1 minute left of class, actually about 30 seconds left of class. So I'm about to end it. But if you have not finished the Jamboard, make sure that you get that done, whether it is right here, right after class, or whether that is later tonight. I'm going to be looking at that Jamboard and looking at some of those responses. And then tomorrow, I'm going to pull up the Jamboard, and we'll see how these three connect and what the differences and what the similarities are between the three students and what they observed. Okay? If you guys have any questions, you guys know that you can always email me. I'll respond pretty quickly. We can also go over any of 1.4 tomorrow if you have any questions as well, or you could just email me. All right? That is all that I have for you guys today. If you want to email me, great. If you have any problems with the Jamboard anymore, just send me something, okay? I'm sorry about my mic today. Hopefully I can get it figured out and it doesn't happen again. Hopefully I don't have to call in through my phone. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, we are doing scheduling tomorrow.
Have a great day.
You too.